HQ in Nashville, Tennessee, to wherever you're cheering on your Tennessee Titans. The So Bros Network presents the Unofficial Titans Podcast.
Welcome back for another episode of the Unofficial Titans Podcast right here on So Bros Network. Mine's right, ass is tight as we get ready to tackle free agency for you today. It's your boy, the EIC at So Bros Network, Big Natural Stoney Keeley. You can follow me on Twitter at Stoney Keeley. Follow us collectively at So Bros Network on all major social media platforms. Flying solo this week. Shit happens. We always record on Thursday or Friday. I didn't know if it was going to be today. I didn't know if it was going to be tomorrow. I checked with Owen to see if he could do tomorrow. He couldn't do it, and it immediately just became like, whenever I can squeeze 30 minutes in, we're going to record this thing. Like, you guys know how it is around So Bros HQ. We're just running around this bitch like a chicken with its head cut off. So I'm here. Still recovering from the flu. That's why there wasn't an episode last week. And I don't know if it... My wife tells me that I sound a lot better, but I don't know if it... I feel like it comes across how nasally I still am. It's fucking crazy. Like, talking to Sean about it at our Oscars live stream on Sunday, and he brings it up like, I'm amazed at how sick you get. And it's true. I don't know. Ever since I had COVID in December of 2020. And ever since then, like, I get just like these crippling viral infections. And last week it was the flu, and it kicked my ass. I mean, at this point, this is day 9, I think, and I'm still on some cough medicine. Crazy stuff. I was practically bedridden for 5 days. You know, I've always tried to like power through and just say, like, if I can go, I'm going to go. But I could not go for like 5 days. It was crazy. I didn't have an appetite. I got winded walking from bed to the bathroom. Wild shit. So I don't know what's going to become of me. I think eventually my lungs are just going to be like, you're going to die. Like, we can't keep doing this over and over, Stoney. So we quit. We're out of here. Because that's what happens. That's what happens when you push people, you push your organs, you push them too far, too hard, and too long. Eventually, they're just going to be like, I'm out. And I think that's what's going to happen. So just enjoy me while you got me. That's all I'll say about that. Making my apologies about the way my voice sounds. I feel like when I'm sick, I sound like the Tennessee comes out in me a little bit more. And I don't know if it's like, my wife says that I don't sound country, but to me, I think I sound country. And from a young age, I made a concerted effort. Like, I don't want to sound like that. So I've been doing this my whole life. And it's like when my nose gets stopped up like this, there's just nothing I can do about it. Anyway, I've been talking about myself for 3 fucking minutes, wasting all the time in the world when you guys are excited to talk about free agency. At least I hope you're excited. I still see some people on Twitter scrolling through my feed, just doom scrolling because I hate myself. I'm just like, how can people not be happy about what the Titans are doing? I don't understand. The philosophy, it just feels totally different. And our buddy Easton Freeze talked about how weird it was seeing like a new regime of Titans coming in, and just how different everything feels. And I'm like, yeah, this is like what we're watching right now with the 2024 Tennessee Titans is like watching Fear the Walking Dead. It's like, this is set in the same universe as what you've been watching for the last 5 years, but everything is different and you can't place it. You can't make sense of it all. I gave up on Fear the Walking Dead after a season. I'm told I shouldn't have, but it's just too much. It's like the Marvel stuff at this point. Like, there's too much. It's just nobody cares anymore. I'm straying from my point, but the point is, like, this is our same beloved team that made a clear and dynamic shift in philosophy, and now they're supplementing the roster, spending the money that they have. And like, this narrative that the Titans are cheap, it just, come on, y'all. I mean, The money they shelled out for Calvin Ridley alone should have told you that. Lloyd Cushenberry getting paid. It's just, it's the dawning of a new era. And for everything that we went through with the firing of John Robinson last year, with the firing of Mike Vrabel this year, and just bringing in Brian Callahan and just kind of wondering, like, what is it all going to look like? Well, we're starting to get answers to that. We're starting to get answers. And to me, I love it. I think this is the exact thing that Brian Callahan was brought in here for. I love that all of a sudden, like, Rand Carthon's doing press conferences. He's going to be on 104.5 with Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RK Dub in the morning. Like, he's out there. It kind of feels like there's a bit of a weight off of his shoulders. Like, I don't know. I get the sense that the tones of his press conferences are a little bit different now than they were last year. Not that I have any idea what could have been the cause of that, but this really, to me, does feel like a situation where, I know the meme is let Rand cook, but it kind of feels like Rand Carthon's kind of stepping into his own here as the GM of the Tennessee Titans, with the input of Brian Callahan, this new coaching staff, this new all-star coaching staff, and now we're starting to see the players, and we're starting to be able to kind of configure a profile for what this regime is looking for, right? They want athletes. Everybody that they've signed so far has had like a tremendous relative athletic score. And their thinking is, get them in the building and we'll coach them up. So I think it helps us kind of start to project a little to, once the season starts, what is this offense going to look like? What's the defense going to look like? And by all accounts from today's press conferences, I think the main takeaway, if you stayed awake for all of them, was that the vibes are just kind of different this year. And we've heard some people in the media say that it's not, I always laugh because these things are like carefully crafted as to not take a shot at like Mike Vrabel. But then they're just like, oh, well, it's not that there were anything wrong with the vibes last year or anything, but just everybody seems so energetic and smiling and happy and collaborative and all this stuff that I'm just like, what are you really saying? Like, just say it. We can still like Mike Vrabel and appreciate what he did for this organization, but we don't have to act like everything he touched turned to gold. Maybe there is like new air in the organization, because that was something that we heard with the Diana Rossini ordeal, was that Vrabel kind of sucked the air out of the room, right? Alpha male, big dog coming in there, my way or the highway kind of deal. Maybe that's different now. I don't know, but I want to dig into these free agents because I, by and large, like what they've done before. I think the philosophy here is get athletes that can do a bunch of things dynamically. Is dynamically even a word? But I think they're getting dynamic athletes in there because they want to be a speedier, more explosive organization, roster from top to bottom. So the first domino to fall was Tony Pollard. And I know there were a lot of people mad out there. I said you're outing yourself if you don't think this is Tyjae Spears' backfield. I still think it's Tyjae Spears' backfield to lose. I think he's going to be the focal point of this offense, but I think it's important to get a piece alongside him. And this isn't to say like, oh, well, it's going to be 80-20 Tyjae Spears. It may be like 60-40 or something like that. But I still think he's going to be the predominant ball carrier for this offense. But it's important to get a guy next to him that can kind of do it all. And the thing that I'm going to, by the way, like I'll get into my tape studies on all of these prospects, all of these players throughout the summer. Right now we're getting our initial evals together. Everybody's breaking them down. I'll back that up with film over the course of the summer during the dead period when there's nothing else going on. It's usually when I go back and do the film study. So it's a good time. Listen, it's a good time to subscribe to Stacking the Inbox right now anyway, because all of my NFL draft coverage is up there. I've got a Kamari Lassiter film study dropping tomorrow. I've done, at this point, like 200 prospects that I've written about. That's all up there, film studies, the whole thing, and then we're going to get into it in the summertime as well. So Tony Pollard, you get a guy that can do a little bit of everything. You're no longer in this situation where um, you're not necessarily tipping plays, but you're not in a situation where your personnel limits what you can call on offense. Because Tyjae Spears, I mean, if you paid attention to Zach's coverage of the draft last year, we were both enamored by Tyjae Spears coming out of Tulane, and Zach's comp for Tyjae Spears was Tony Pollard. So listen, it only makes sense to bring him in here. And there's going to be a timeshare. I think the days of any particular running back getting 20, 25, 30 carries in a game are long gone. I think this offense wants to pass the ball. I think the personnel decisions that they've made have shown that they are placing an emphasis on protecting Will Levis, but also doing what it takes to secure playmakers. And I think this is an offense that just bottom line, they need playmakers. Tony Pollard is a playmaker. And people kind of get hung up on the injury thing. But if you look at some of the numbers that friend of the show, James Foster at No Flags Film on Twitter posted, Tony Pollard was like a completely different running back the first half of the season compared to the second half of the season. So this guy is coming back from a broken leg, hits his stride, and became one of the more efficient, prolific running backs in the league down the stretch of the 2023 season, assuming he can stay healthy and there's no issues there. I think this is going to be an explosive spark plug for this offense. I loved the signing. Lloyd Cushenberry. Mike Will made it, baby, because we on that good cushion alcohol. Lloyd Cushenberry, top of the market center. And this is a good get right here because he's one of the best centers in the game. Forget like available in free agency as a qualifier. Just you pull the centers together, and Lloyd Cushenberry was one of the best to begin with. I did not think the Titans would be in on him because I thought they would be trying to go for a linebacker, go for a top of market corner, top of market edge rusher as well, potentially. And I kind of felt like they would make do with some of the value options, either in free agency or they would draft their guy to be the cornerstone. But they weren't afraid to spend that money. They went out there. They did what it took to get Cushenberry here in Nashville. And now this is a building block piece. And to me, these kind of situations are rare in free agency because this is reminiscent of the Ben Jones deal for me. A guy that I don't remember how old Ben Jones was when he actually came to the Titans, but he was an established guy that still had a lot left in the tank. Cushenberry, I feel like, has established himself as one of the best centers in the game. Coming into his own, you're getting a guy in his prime. So it's okay. You pay the top of market prices for that. No issue with that whatsoever. Because my expectation is this guy's going to be here for years to come, and you needed an upgrade. I'm intrigued that Aaron Brewer got a spot in Miami because while I was kind of tired of watching him get blown up at least once or twice a game with the Titans, I kind of feel like the way Mike McDaniel does things down there in his offense, athletic, getting to get out there and move side to side. I'm kind of intrigued by Aaron Brewer in Miami, but comparing the two options, it's a clear upgrade for the Titans. This is from Warren Sharp on Twitter. Lloyd Cushenberry ranked number 3 in pass blocking last year. Aaron Brewer ranked 27th. Cushenberry allowed just 14 pressures, number 2 fewest for any center playing at least 15 games. I can't wait to get into the tape study on this guy. I'm going to do a little bit more diligence on him because I love watching the offensive linemen play. It's like big 300-pound boys doing kung fu out there. So I'm excited to dig into it, but I think this could be a massive signing for the Titans, and it's checked a huge box, crossed a huge need off of the list. Now, like I don't think they even need to be thinking about center in the draft. I think you might have a versatile piece in Daniel Brunskill on the roster that could fill in, maybe be your backup. I think you might be able to get a UDFA that could come in here and maybe you develop and see what he is years down the road. But I think Cushenberry is going to have that slot on lock for years to come. Chitaba, I've watched the press conference. I've watched him pronounce it, and I'm still going to fuck it up. Chitaba Awuzie. Cheeto. Just call him Cheeto. That's what he said at the presser today. I've been a fan of his ever since his draft class. I wanted the Titans to draft him instead of Adoree Jackson. But, folks, they don't listen to me. They don't listen to me. We could have had him this whole time if they had just been picked up the phone, said, Stoney, what do you think we should do here at cornerback? I like Awuzie. I actually did cheat a little bit and go ahead and watch some of his tape when I was preparing for free agency because he's a guy that I've had circled for as long as I can remember. Like 2017 was his draft class, and I've been a fan of him ever since. And like, you know, you cover the draft long enough, like you start to pick up on your favorites, and you have favorites out of each draft class. And when you find a player like that, you tend to kind of keep tabs on them throughout their career to see how it's going. Right now, Bo Melton, the Packers wide receiver, is one of those guys for me. Cheeto has been one of those guys for me as well. So I've kind of kept an eye on him. I think he's got a natural fluid back pedal, change of direction, good in man, where he can stick to guys. He can force tight windows. I think he had a bad game against A.J. Brown in the playoffs. I hope that's not what you guys remember about him, where A.J. Brown would flare his route out a little bit before breaking inside, and Cheeto would bite on it pretty big and let A.J. Brown get open. A.J. Brown had a few big catches on Cheeto, but let's not think about that. Like, he's instinctive, decisive, willing as a tackler. I think he's kind of a tone setter in the locker room as well. I think this is a good addition. This is a really good addition, and I'm kind of chomping at the bit to see what he can do under Denard Wilson's tutelage, because I think he can be the top cornerback on this team in 2024. I don't think the Titans are done at the position in free agency. Maybe they trade for L'Jarius Sneed, maybe they don't. But I think they're going to add another guy, probably draft another guy as well. I mean, that group needs complete overhauling. But I think he's capable of being one of the guys. When I talked about this being Fear the Walking Dead earlier, Cheeto's one of those characters that kind of comes in and you can kind of see the vision, like, oh, we're going to build this whole story, build this whole thing. He's one of those guys. He's one of the culture setters, tone setters, and I really like the signing. He was one of my guys in this free agent class, and I'm happy that the Titans landed him. Kenneth Murray is where you kind of lose me a little bit. I admitted to Zach and Easton and JT in the group chat, like, haven't done a lot of tape study on Kenneth Murray because I just, quite frankly, I didn't think he would be on the Titans' radar. And he kind of admitted it in his press conference today a little bit. Like, there's been some ups and downs to his career. I think it's putting it nicely. I feel like he's a guy that has struggled to come into his own. And the optimistic view of that is that he is coming into his own, and in this defense, maybe with a little more, better coaching, the presence of Frank Bush, coaching legend, maybe you continue to lean into that and you can get the most out of this guy. But when I prepared for the Chargers game way back in the beginning of last season, the only notes I really made about him were just like, and he talk about not living up to the potential. This was a first-round pick. And I made a joke on Twitter earlier this week when, like, the first thing that comes up about a player is how many games they started and that they were a former first-round pick. That's not good. That's not good. But with Murray, watching him specifically, I just kept laughing, thinking, like, I don't know what he's doing out there. And that's kind of been the book on him from people that have put in the film work steadily. Chargers fans were kind of happy to see him go. I think that's pretty telling from a fan base. Not that all of the NFL fan bases are full of incredibly smart, gifted football knowers like the Titans fan base is, but I think it says something about the general sentiment about a player when the fans are like, "Yep, don't let the door hit you on the backside." So I've got a lot of catching up to do on Kenneth Murray. I know Zach's written a fantastic profile of Kenneth Murray up on stackingtheinbox.com. You can go check that out. That was the first one that came in that I was just like, "Oh boy, I don't see it here, guys." And then we start reliving the relative athletic scores. Mike Herndon retweets a bunch of stuff about him, crashing gaps and against the run and just, downhill thumper type. And I think the more we have the conversation about him, I think if you are going to look at this as a positive signing, your hope is that he is not going to be the green dot linebacker. He's not going to be the guy that's the centerpiece of the defense. It's kind of dropping back and tracking what's happening in front of him and reacting to it, identifying routes and covering accordingly, that sort of thing. If you want him to succeed, you get him in there and you just have him chase running backs, chase quarterbacks, that sort of thing. But the tools are there. And I think that's another interesting part of this discussion is that Rand Carthon, Brian Callahan, whoever's making the calls up there, it's Rand Carthon. I don't know why I said that. Rand Carthon's looking at this like, let's get athletes in here. Kenneth Murray has all the athletic ability in the world. Really, really good, talented athlete. I might go back and watch some of his Oklahoma tape and just see what they got there. Like, let's really dig into this guy. But he wants athletes there that he can mold and say, you've got the abilities, you've got the traits that you can't coach. You can't coach up athleticism, folks. You got those traits. We can take it from here. We got Frank fucking Bush here. All right, we're gonna turn you into a field general out there, Kenneth Murray. If you're excited about this signing, then I would say that is the optimistic approach here. And maybe it is. Maybe I'm wrong. Like I said, I haven't caught up on Kenneth Murray's 2023 season. I have no issue with admitting that to you guys. Just saying, at the time we were prepping for the Chargers game, I kind of felt like this guy is something else. Sadiq Charles, offensive line depth, guy that has played some left tackle, played some right guard, played some left guard. Like, he got the bulk of his snaps at left guard in 2023. Sorry, this flu. 9 days into this thing is still fucking with me. I can't talk right. I made a joke at some point like, oh, Sadiq Charles left guard, Peter Skoronski left tackle. We're just leaning into the bit at this point, though. They told you all Skoronski's going to be a guard. So I think this is just depth. I think this is them kind of saying, but it was kind of a strike against my idea that, oh, you know what, maybe they can just reserve the Jalen Duncans, the John Ajukwus, the Andre Dillards, the NPFs, the Dylan Radens. You can reserve those guys to depth pieces. Like, no, they're adding depth too to the offensive line. Like, I don't think anybody's safe at this point. So I'm interested. Former fourth round pick, played on that magical 2019 LSU team. I'm kind of excited to dig into his tape a little bit because I'm going in completely dark on Sadiq Charles. Well, let's talk about the big one. Let's talk about Calvin Ridley. And everybody's making fun of the Titans because they're paying Calvin Ridley $23 million a year. Because nobody pays attention to how contracts work. I mean, we know, props to Zach at FWordsPod on Twitter for kind of breaking down that contract in a more digestible way. But the bulk of that money is going to come over the next 2 years with a potential out after that 2025 season. So, y'all just need to chill and wait till the contract details come out before you start talking about that. But, man, my voice ain't holding up this week. Not well at all. I was trying to say, damn, I might have to shut this thing down soon. I saw one of the meme accounts post about, $23 million a year with clips of Calvin Ridley not making catches or fumbling, dropping the ball, that sort of thing. And I laughed so hard because people want to hate this move so bad, but my takeaway from watching that clip, I don't know if you guys saw it. I didn't retweet it, so I don't know. I don't know where you can find it, and I don't remember the account that it's from. But I'm watching those clips, picturing like this 12-year-old kid that runs this stupid ass account, like just thinking, "Oh, gotcha, the stupid Titans. Calvin Ridley sucks." But I'm watching it and I'm actually thinking, damn, I don't think Trevor Lawrence is good. Like there's a lot of balls that are like way too high for Calvin Ridley to catch. There were a lot of balls that were like 2 or 3 feet off the mark where, couldn't like rifle a laser down the middle in between two defenders. And we're talking about Calvin Ridley. That's not my takeaway. I watch it and I'm like, I've been on this Trevor Lawrence is a little overhyped train for quite some time. And I'm not going to say that there's a quarterback controversy in Jacksonville, but I'll just say I don't think you invest in the backup the way they did with Mac Jones. If you feel completely 100% comfortable that Trevor Lawrence is capable of staying healthy for a full season and playing at a high level. So I'll just say that. I like the move for Calvin Ridley. Brian Callahan made it clear he wants guys that can go to work on the outside. Calvin Ridley's a guy that can go to work on the outside, able to release from multiple positions, good salesman. I don't think you want him like breaking across the middle and trying to be a yak guy or anything like that. Just win the matchups. And I think that's what Calvin Ridley is. Absolutely torched the Titans last season. I saw somebody say that those were the only 2 games that he has. Like, I don't understand where the hate for this signing is coming from, because like this is the market every year. Like we talk shit about the Christian Kirk signing. Christian Kirk has gone on to be a pretty good wide receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's, like you can't compare what Calvin Ridley is making to like what Justin Jefferson's making. Like that deal hasn't come yet. Or maybe I'm thinking of Jamar Chase. I can't remember. One of them signed and one of them's not. Like Calvin Ridley is the best available on the market. Calvin Ridley is going to be paid top of market money. Is it an overpay? Yeah, probably. But like that's what you have to do to secure talent. If they didn't go out and get Calvin Ridley, some of these Titans fans would be out there bitching about how the owner's cheap and they don't want to spend money and all this stuff. And it just drives me up a fucking wall. Just like watch the tape. And if you just want to watch the tape from those Titans games, more power to you. Because guess what? It's fucking March. Okay. We got 6 more months before we're going to even answer questions about these guys. So just enjoy it. Like your team went out and got the best wide receiver on the market. This changes everything about their draft strategy. That is no longer a dire need that they're going to be forced to address with an early round pick. Like they're setting themselves up to go best player available in these spots. So I look at it as like some fans just are never going to be happy. The national media laughing at the Titans for overspending for Calvin Ridley is just tone deaf. It's silly to me. And I have been saying for years, who gives a fuck what the national people say about the Titans, because they out themselves as not watching the Titans, right? These are the same people saying, oh, Tony Pollard, it's over for Tyjae Spears. The same people that, say, well, oh gosh, Ryan Tannehill's racist. Ryan Tannehill's racist because he's not going to mentor Malik Willis. These people that don't pay attention, that just chime in with shit like this. Sorry, I get a little passionate because I think it's a perfectly reasonable deal, especially now that we've seen the contract details, for the talent and the skill set that Calvin Ridley presents for this offense. You got 2 guys that are dogs now. DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley. Imagine if they add Rome Odunze to this wide receiver room. And imagine if they do kind of make a concerted effort to get Treylon Burks juiced up. Let's move him back into the slot and have him do some things there. Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears both catching passes now. Josh Wiley's healthy. What is this new offense going to be for Chigakonkwo? Like, all of a sudden, Will Levis has fucking weapons. And you're narrowing down your needs on offense, where we got singular focus on the offensive line. They might add another wide receiver too, by the way. I don't know that they're done there. My inclination would be to draft 2, bring in 2 in undrafted free agents. It's a really deep class, day 3 guys. You get a Roma Dunze, you get a Ryan Flournoy. Boom, we're cooking with peanut oil, baby. But I like the Calvin Ridley move on the surface. It was another one that I was not. They have so many needs that I was not expecting them to get multiple top of market caliber guys. And they got 2, and I think you could argue 3 with Pollard. Cushenberry, Ridley, and like I said, I think Pollard was among the best running backs available, and they went out and got him. So I think this is exciting. I think this offense has new juice. Again, it's like a TV show set in the same universe as a movie you saw before. Like, the characters are different, but it's the same vibe. It feels like I feel like they're crushing it in free agency. And I don't understand the hate. The Mason Rudolph signing is fine. I think he's great as a backup. I think you want somebody that's going to come in and not shit the bed. Somebody that you can actually throw the ball with. Not to take shots at anybody, but, you know, that hadn't been the case for the Titans recently, necessarily. So I like the Mason Rudolph signing. Keeping Nick Folk was imperative to me. I talked about it a little bit on a football show with Zach on Monday. Like, it's just battered Titans fan syndrome, but like, going through what this team has gone through at kicker the last several years of just, hey, we'll bring in a couple undrafted free agents and let them sort it out in the summer and it'll be fine. Like, that didn't work. And then you finally had something that worked. You can't let him walk. And they didn't let him walk. They tendered Dr. Gibby. Jack Gibbons is back. Man, you root for a guy like Dr. Gibby, right? And I think he's been good for what he is. I still, to be critical, I worry about the linebacker spot, because right now they've got Kenneth Murray, Jack Gibbons, and Otis Reese. So you got 2 young developmental guys and Kenneth Murray, who hasn't exactly had the most polished, proven career so far. I thought it was something that they were going to invest heavily in. I wanted Patrick Queen. Patrick Queen's a Steeler. Patrick Queen also didn't make near as much money as I thought he would. So I watched his tape this season and kind of felt like the Roquan Smith merchant narrative was unfair. I felt like he was coming into his own a bit before Roquan Smith got there. But it did kind of make me wonder if maybe the NFL felt like Queen was more of a byproduct of his surroundings than a driver of his success, if that makes sense. And, if the Titans weren't in on him at all, with Denard Wilson, who was on that staff, got an up close and personal look at him, I don't know. I feel like the writing's on the wall, right? You don't necessarily have to say it when you can read the tea leaves like that. And Stoney, maybe you were just wrong about Patrick Queen, and they didn't want him at all. But to see Josie Jewell, Frankie Louvu go, there are a couple of other names that I mentioned on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, that this market for the linebackers is just dried up. It's just dried up completely. And I know that they've been linked to Jerome Baker. To me, like, oh gosh, like, we're getting down to Devin White. I think Devin White has been inconsistent, but probably better than what you got in house. Can he be the field general? Can he be the green dot linebacker? I don't know. Are they setting themselves up to take a linebacker earlier in the draft than we think? Maybe. I think it's the one position that they haven't really checked that box yet, and it kind of makes me nervous based off of what's left available to them. And I don't mean for that to be a slight at Jack Gibbons, because I think for him to be an undrafted guy and earn a starting role last year, and not necessarily the all pro, but reliable enough to get the job done. Maybe this team, this staff, this regime believes in him. I don't know, but I'm kind of looking at the linebacker spot right now and thinking we're on thin ice, guys. And then, of course, the final signing, unless there's been somebody signed since I started talking, is bringing back Nick Westbrook-Akine. And hey, man, I ain't gonna hate on NWI. That man's made a hell of a career. I saw a tweet earlier that the guy needs like 700 yards to crack the top 10 all time on the Titans receiving list. So I'm all for it. Like, he's proven time and time again that he's reliable as a fourth or fifth option, maybe even a sixth option. And you know what? There's still the chance that, he doesn't survive training camp, depending on what happens the rest of free agency and the draft. So I would say don't overreact to it, but good for Nick Westbrook-Akine, man. Just hanging around on this roster. The Titans have been linked to Justin Simmons, Marcus May, Jerome Baker, who I just mentioned, Chase Young, supposedly Mekhi Becton, though it seems like all of the information on that is coming out of Becton's camp. I know Mekhi Becton visited with the Bengals today. He has 2 more visits this week lined up. We don't know what they are. I'm going to go out on a limb and say one of them is the Titans. I would be in on Mekhi Becton. I think the bus talk is kind of a lazy narrative. I think you're not digging into the context of his career so far. Nobody seems to like Keith Carter. Nobody seems to want to play for Keith Carter. I don't know how Keith Carter, oh Lord, just audibly yawning on a podcast. That's the Sobros way, I guess. I just stay tired. I stay tired and run down. My mother says that's why I get sick all the time. It's because I don't take care of myself. I don't sleep enough because I'm watching Kamari Lassiter take on the Florida Gators and Ricky Pearsall at midnight till 1 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, I don't know, like, the Keith Carter stuff is just hilarious to me because he's always catching strays from players that don't really like him all that much. So I think there's an interesting dynamic there. I think if you watch some of Mekhi Becton's 2023, I think there's some pretty good stuff in there. I think with Bill Callahan, not to overstate the what's becoming cliche at this point, the magic wand that he can just wave and create a good offensive lineman. I think there's something to work with there. Massive dude, freak athletic profile, gonna be cheap too. So I'm all for it. I think if you bring a guy like that in, then it does give you a little bit of flexibility. I'm not saying your left tackle problems are solved per se, but I think it does give you the flexibility to maybe go best player available in the draft. And I think that's ultimately the goal of what they're trying to do. A couple of safeties, Justin Simmons, Marcus May. Simmons would be my preference there. They've got a meeting with Jerome Baker, assuming he makes it out of his meeting with the Browns. I don't remember who he's meeting with. And then Chase Young, which, listen, the defensive tackle market is drying up as well. And if they don't land Chase Young, I feel like that edge rusher market is going to start to dry up as well. Young guy, I don't think he's going to be as expensive as he would have been had he lived up to the number 2 overall pick billing. So I would be interested in adding a little more juice, a little more teeth to the pass rush. I kind of like Chase Young. I kind of like the idea of just getting these freak athletes in here and these guys that had pedigrees as college players and either, as a reclamation project or just giving them their fair share. Like, let's go with it. I think that's kind of the mindset you need if you're where the Titans are at right now, because you're going to have to take some gambles if you're going to be good in 2024. Not too big of a risk to risk long-term damage to the franchise or anything like that. But I like the players where it's like, you know what, if we hit on their upside, we got foundational pieces here. So I think that's what your line of thinking is for guys like Kenneth Murray, for a guy like potentially Mekhi Becton, and even Chase Young to a certain extent. So I'm excited about what they're doing. There's still some guys out there. I mentioned adding another wide receiver. I'd be okay with a KJ Osborne coming into this receiving core. I'd be okay with a Marquez Valdez-Scantling who's still out there, MVS. Even, at this point, like throw Hollywood Brown into this room. Calvin Ridley kind of changes how I'm looking at the wide receiver position. It's awesome. Like, just maybe add another guy. Tyron Smith is still out there. I don't know. I don't know. I just immediately I say his name and I think about the meme of, taking back shots in the locker room. And people tagged me in the account that says it's Tyron Smith. It said he debunked the idea. That's not the point of the meme, first of all. The point of the meme is to make a joke. You're making jokes about people taking back shots in the locker room. I don't think that's really Tyron Smith, guys. I think it's a fake account. That's just my 2 cents. But Tyron Smith, old, injured, depending on the price, I'd be okay with it as maybe a stopgap competition. Again, like a box you could check so that you're more flexible in the draft. But I don't think Tyron Smith, I don't think he's going to be on their radar at this point, because that's like for a team that might be tackle depth away from competing for a Super Bowl. I don't think he's in a rebuilding team's plans. I wouldn't think, but I could be wrong. And, if they don't have somebody to spend this money on, yeah, fuck it. Give him like a 1-year deal and pay him to come to camp. And, maybe he can be, if he could stay healthy, maybe he can be your lockdown left tackle. I'm just not really counting on it. I mentioned Devin White, Terrell Dodson's out there, Oren Burks is out there. Safety position, I think we should add Cam Curl. Has some history with Chris Harris in Washington. Add Cam Curl to the safety room if they miss out on Justin Simmons. I kind of feel like Marcus May, they're interested in him, but I kind of feel like that ship might have sailed. Like he might be entering the twilight of his career. Kind of like what I said with Tyron Smith. I don't know if May is necessarily the guy for the future. I think Simmons still could be. And I think a guy like Cam Curl could be entering that conversation as well. Nobody seems to be talking about Akello Weatherspoon, but a guy that had some quality reps at cornerback for San Francisco for a number of years. He's on the market. I think they could add another corner. And then Stephon Gilmore. If this team doesn't trade for L'Jarius Sneed, they missed out on Kendall Fuller. Like, now we're getting to that tier of guys. Like, you know what? Maybe we do just throw a contract at Stephon Gilmore so that we've got a capable corner opposite Cheeto. And suddenly, like, you're feeling a lot better about that cornerback spot. Couple of guys that have departed the Titans, or are free agents, I should say, that I'm really, really intrigued by. You haven't heard Ryan Tannehill's name, and you haven't heard Christian Fulton's name. And I thought Christian Fulton was supposed to be one of the best young corners in the game, but haven't really heard a lot about him. So I just find that interesting. Is like Aziz was snatched up, Danico was snatched up, but Ryan Tannehill, after a year